My name is Molly Murphy-Mcgregor. I'm the Executive Director and the co-founder of the National Women's History Project. I retire in 2 years and 9 months. The date is December 31st, 2020. And I tell you that because the National Women's History Project is in transition because of that. Because I've been at it from the very beginning, which means I have all the institutional knowledge. And the National Women's History Project, I don't know how much of you know about it, but we're the organization that spearheaded the movement for first Women's History Week and then National Women's History Month. And we provide the materials, resource materials, ideas, curriculum, because from the very beginning when we asked teachers to incorporate women into the curriculum, they didn't know what we were talking about. They didn't even think there was a possibility of doing that. And what we train them to do is just ask new questions. Just asking the questions, what were the women doing? How did this event impact different cultural groups? I mean, just a whole series of questions. And my experience of coming to women's history and having it be not only the passion, but the total of my life was when I was a young second-year teacher, and a kid asked me, what is the women's movement? And it was 1972, banner year in women's history. The women's movement. Ms. Magazine was published for the first time. 1972, Title IX was written to be enacted in 1977. Shirley Chisholm runs for President of the United States. Barbara Jordan is elected as the first black since Reconstruction from the South. It is a banner year. I am a second-year young social studies teacher, so I needed to know, oh yeah, did I mention I was female? So I needed to know everything that this young man asked. And so I paused for a moment, tried to look as intelligent as I possibly could, and then I said, what a good question. Let's divide into groups and look at that from the perspective of the government. How does the government perceive the women's movement? And how about in terms of the churches? How are the churches seeing it? And what are the political ramifications of the women's movement? And then, as if history wasn't my great passion, I finally said, and historically, what would we say about it? It was a Friday. I was stalling. I was way too insecure to say, I don't know what you're talking about, kid. And I went home to my Sacred Shrine of History books, and sure enough, one chapter, one book, Seneca Falls Convention of 1848. The whole thing was outlined in yellow, got straight A's in history, so clearly I passed the test and had no gratitude, recognition, connection to the women who had preceded me. Here I was, a married woman, teaching high school, wearing pants to school, and how did that all happen? Most significantly for me was the fact that I'm the youngest of 9 children, and my mother was dead by this time, and I had never, ever recognized what her life was like in terms of being a woman. She was my mother, and mothers just naturally do everything. So that's been my propelling throughout all of it. I went back to graduate
school. To register, all those things are permissible, but you cannot participate in elections vis-a-vis candidates. You can, however, with a 501c3, participate in referendums. A lot of 501c3 people do not understand because you can participate and be involved in elections if you have an H selection. I know this is all gobbledygook, but 501c3 or 501c, it's really a code, the section of the IRS code, Internal Revenue Code, And it has to do with, if you're a nonprofit, you aren't treated like business, you're not subject to business taxes at the federal level. But you have some rules if you want deductibility, meaning that your giver can deduct it from their income tax. So for that, you can't get involved in elections. And the word partisan, I think you should take out. In any election where there's a candidate seeking office, that candidate could be an independent, it could be a Democrat, Republican, whatever. That's not the issue. The issue is you can't be involved in elections of candidates, because a lot of school boards are nonpartisan, by the way, and you can't get involved in that either. Secondly, though, if you file for an age selection, you can do a certain amount of lobbying work. There's a formula. Essentially, I'm a little rusty on this, and you can say the exact formula, but a percentage of your spending in a given year can go to lobbying activity. Direct lobbying is when you actually talk to a legislator or a member of Congress or a governor or the president or whatever, an actual person who has the power to make a decision.
Today, we're convening to discuss an issue that is not common to our deliberations generally, but that is important enough for us to really look into how religion interfaces with equity for women. We are turned to John Coe, the canon, vicar of the Episcopal Church Cathedral that we see off on Wisconsin Avenue. John.
First, thank you to Carmen for the invitation and to all of you for engaging in this topic. We've had an uptick in our membership, and in particularly with young adults, cognizant of the fact that we stand on the shoulders of people who blaze that trail.
Now we will hear from Rabbi Hannah Goldstein.
Carmen, thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here and humbled to be on this panel. And I am very aware of my age. As I was thinking and preparing for today, I was thinking about how the rabbinate that I am a part of and that I entered into is very much the product of a lot of other women's hard work, and the ease with which I can call myself a rabbi and sort of move easily in that world.
Hear from Donna Hakimian.
So, I just wanted to thank so much the organizers. Actually, one of the very first events I attended when I started this role was actually back when the meetings were on the other side of the circle. And really, I feel like I'm able to stand here and do what I'm doing because of a lot of the struggles and many years of struggles that all of you did in the women's rights movement. So I'm just very grateful to be here. In background, so I was born in Iran to a Baha'i family, but at the age of 2, my family fled religious persecution. At the time, unfortunately, many thousands of Baha'is were being imprisoned and many were being killed. And so
legislative, two groups, that the Senate and the House, and they worked and worked and worked. But as we all know, the administration changed, and there were an awful...
And one of the sites was used for something else.
Yes, and so we have been plowing ahead with the kinds of things like this so that we can, show that we are on the ball insofar as taking a look at the curriculum and women's history.
Hi, my name is Milani Douglas, and I'm the Director of Public Programs at the National Museum of Women in the Arts. I came into the position 7 months ago, hit the ground running, absolutely running, had to we run a women's art and social change program, and the program is about highlighting and women that are at the intersection of art and social change and giving them a platform to speak about the work that they're doing. When I came into the position, what I realized is that there was an opportunity for there to be a larger network around the program. You have all of these amazing women that are coming, whether it's a cocktail hour or for a Sunday supper. So twice we have about 5 programs during the season. 2 of those programs are Sunday suppers, where we literally sit down family style and we have a dinner. We also have the women that are working at the top of their field, or anyone that's championing women. We have them speak for usually about an hour and 15 minutes, and then over dinner the audience can ask them questions. And then we have a catalyst cocktail hour where we have an activity that allows the women in the audience to have some sort of experiential learning experience. Our audience is the most diverse audience that the museum has. We have ages from 18 to 80, and I love it. We tried to have it, my goal is to make it even more intergenerational, and I'll speak a little bit about that when I get into it.
Prostitution forces, the buyers and sellers of sex acts, attempting to make prostitution more acceptable by society at large. Even so, it's not accurate. It is meant to lend a, oh, you know what? I made this so big that I can't read. I don't need my glasses. Attempting to make prostitution more acceptable by society at large. It is meant to lend a degree of acceptance to what is a brutal, dangerous, and dehumanizing activity that primarily injures women, and to privilege those who participate in these activities. It is a tool of propaganda. Women, youth, LGBTQIA+ persons are trafficked, trapped, and enticed into the sex trade due to poverty, sexual abuse, domestic violence, rejection by family, homelessness, difficulty in finding work, lack of education, and the need for acceptance, financial help, and shelter.
This meeting today, it's been an interesting couple of years, and I started my day by going to the National Democratic Women's Club, donating pussy hats that I have knitted in preparation for the January 19th.
It's not so clear that's going to happen.
Well, there will be a march where we will wear pussy hats. And I'd like to make that reference because it started a wonderful movement and culminating in the midterm election. Women voted, women ran for office at the federal, state house, and state legislative bodies. It was a wonderful turnout, and our wonderful presenters are going to talk about the post-election results and the impact on women and family issues. I'm going to introduce the three speakers. We're going to start with Catherine Bean. You have her bio in the handout that Sue gave you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of YWCA USA. For those of you who are not familiar with our history, YWCA celebrated our 160th year, or anniversary this year. We are currently a network of 210 local YWCAs, all independent 501c3 organizations across 46 states and the District of Columbia. We have, each of those local associations is unified under a mission to eliminate racism and empower women, but can look really different at a local or community level. Each of them provides services that are needed in their community, and just over half of our local associations provide domestic violence or sexual assault prevention services. We're the largest network of domestic violence and sexual assault service providers in the country, so a very large network. And half of our local associations provide child care, most of that in the early years, although some of them are also after school or summer programs.
I mentioned at a staff meeting that I was surprised by the similarities in views between Republican and Democratic women. I was really kind of shocked, actually. Yeah. And the staff said, that can't be true. And so I went and got the details, and I went through some of the numbers with them. And so it was a surprise to everyone that they're really in so much agreement, which I think points up why there are not many Republican women in elective office. I think they've really been discouraged by the male leadership in the party, because obviously the women in the Republican Party, when you ask them these specific questions, do not agree with what the leaders, all older white men of the party, have been promoting as the Republican agenda for years. We will turn this discussion, especially about reproductive rights, which is enormous and complex, to whom I consider a superwoman, Lela Abulfazl.
Oh
I
my
do.
goodness. I should just go now.
Yeah, you should.
Superwoman, bye. Thank you, Dan and Catherine. What I find, I had written something up to say right now, but I actually don't think it works, just based on the conversation that we've heard so far. And I'm thinking that because I look at the list of what Catherine just set up for us about what we want, and then Jan echoed that and this, like, what these laws actually mean. And what I'm struck by is, we could have a different world, and it's a world that is not radical, right? Child care.
So how about telling us a little about you and your career, Kelsey, where you're from, etc.
Thank you, Sue. So as Sue mentioned, my name's Kelsey, and I worked for the Feminist Majority Foundation when I first moved to DC almost 4 years ago now. I have an educational background in women's and gender studies with a focus in international relations, and used to work for a foundation in Vietnam that works on preventing human trafficking, preventing domestic violence, and different private sector groups. So who will do campaigns for us and, a portion of their proceeds, that sort of thing.
Let's hear from the next speaker.
Thank you so much. It is so wonderful to be back here at the Clearinghouse. I was here with Pat Ortman with Girls Gotta Run, which was a wonderful event. And I miss Kelly McIntosh, as we all do, who is a real energy bunny, energizer bunny. And I will convey how much we miss her, but it's a good time to be away from this country. So again, my name is Wendy Lesko, and I am one of the co-founders of Schoolgirls Unite, which is the international initiative of the national nonprofit called the Youth Activism Project. And our organization encourages young people of all genders to really work on policy advocacy. But our Schoolgirls Unite effort is what I want to just share a few stories. And in contrast to Girl Up, we are like this little tiny micro baby. But we are a tiny and demanding, very much girl-led organization. And we started in 2004 with a group of 7th graders. And so we have had girls who all work half a day and go to school half a day. They come on Saturdays for feminist pedagogy and critical dialogue. So together, these groups, these 2 chapters, are working in digital exchange on a weekly basis, exchanging YouTube videos and emails. And it's a big experiment. It probably will fall flat on our face, but this activism across borders in really trying to create this bilateral partnership is the next frontier that we're building from Schoolgirls Unite. So it's we're really excited and horrified by the current U.S. Situation. But we will continue.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'm Gabby Grepsky, and thank you for also allowing me to talk about Girls Gotta Run. Compared, if Schoolgirls Unite is small compared to Girl Up, Girls Gotta Run is even smaller than Girls Unite, Schoolgirls Unite. But I've been involved with the organization since 2009, and I've had the privilege of actually traveling to Ethiopia and meeting some of the girls we support there for 3 years. But it was actually started in 2006. A Washington Post journalist, Emily Wax, spent some time in Addis Ababa and noticed some girls running around throughout the city, and sometimes by themselves and sometimes in groups, and she got to know some of them. And they're not even running in running shoes. They're running in, not flip-flops, but sandals and, like Crocs or something. ski@gmail.com. That's GGREBSKI@gmail.com. And better yet, you can visit girlsgottarun.org at www.girlsgottarun.org.
And we have Wendy Lesko with schoolgirlsunite.org or our national nonprofit, which is the youthactivismproject.org.
And you can find Girl Up on any social media channel that you are part of and at girlup.org.
Hey, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you all.
And encourage people to get out and vote. We even have picked up a model, and I'm not going to remember the name of the school. It's a HBCU school down in the South. For years, they've had the tradition they march to the polls. And so we're trying this year to organize campuses to march to the polls. And even before that, where are the polls? Because what's been happening is there's a trend that the local officials have been moving the polls off of the campuses and making it harder for students to vote.
Introducing art therapy for boys who deal with trauma and loss, target areas to increase boys' participation in STEM and robotics. Additionally, an international travel program to introduce boys to other cultures and to get them outside of DC. And additional sort of support programs that when we saw them, we said, okay, these are all great things that girls could benefit from as well. There was also the 5 for 500 mentoring through literacy program, so an additional mentorship program that was about $500,000, a Celebrating Males of Color luncheon that brought academic champions and honor roll folks together. And then additionally on top of all of that was the high school. So I think it's very easy to focus in on just the school.
It's very relevant. She was the acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights in 2 transition periods, so she knows from the inside what's happening in transition, and we have a lot to learn from Jeanette.
The opportunities that we have today exist in the period before inauguration, right now, and include supporting current agency efforts to stabilize gains. Also, there will be, or has been, burrowing in of political staff, and we need to identify official jobs that are listed in what is called the Plum Book. After the inauguration of the president-elect, there will be opportunities to effect appointments through the whole continuing nomination and confirmation processes. During my 36 years in the federal government, I worked through 9 transitions, 5 of which were elections resulting in changes.
These are I'm retired. So these are my troops. And I'll pop in with stories and suggestions for action.
Well, troops it is, because Pat does really sort of get you going, moving, direct, and everything. And so when you say the godmother of ours, she really did introduce and bring most of us along in your work. And so we are appreciative of your work and your leadership. The DC Coalition is the membership agency here in the district. We have 15 organizations, 4 of which provide housing services. The rest provide non-residential services ranging from legal services to assistance with education and prevention in schools, a wide range, and also some culturally specific organizations.
And we are not only standing there going, where were you when we needed you 50 years ago, but we are with our arms kind of sagging. We are holding him up, and the only thing we ask of you and you is to do that then for the next generation. And so telling these stories, I didn't know that. I've known you a long time, I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
And so the point is we've come a long way, but guess what?
Thank you, Sue. We've been hearing a lot about voter suppression, most recently in North Carolina, where the decision of the voting board there was to have a re-election for the congressperson from North Carolina. So today's meeting on the 2020 census on gerrymandering and voter suppression is particularly timely. We have 2 speakers who, Jessica, who introduced herself, will be talking to us about what is gerrymandering, what is redistricting based on the census, and what has been happening in voter suppression. The purpose of it is to overcome some of the things we're going to learn about today. So let me turn this over to Jessica.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Jones-Caparel from the League of Women Voters. I'm the Policy and Legislative Affairs Senior Manager over there. Thanks very much for the invitation, Jeanette, and for all of you for coming out today. I am going to talk, I'm going to try and talk about a lot of stuff within a limited amount of time. So just a little bit about the League of Women Voters, and I know we have a few members in the audience, so you probably don't need too much background. But we're founded in 1920. We just celebrated our 99th anniversary on Valentine's Day, so we are 99 years young. Founded as part of the suffrage movement, and the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan nonprofit.
From MALDEF, who will tell us about the activities that's going on in the courts throughout the country. And it looks like it's really on a track to get to the Supreme Court. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Jeanette, and thank you all for having me here today to talk about the census, which is an incredibly important issue, and I'm sure you all are very familiar with how critical the census is for a number of reasons, both with respect to representation and also federal dollars that flow into our communities for services that many Americans rely on every day. So I'm Andrea Centino. I'm the Regional Counsel of MALDEF's Washington, D.C. office. As I said before, that's the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. We're a historic civil rights organization. We're celebrating our 50th year this year. And we have offices across the country. And in D.C., we run a policy shop focused on the federal government and then also handle a docket out of the Southeast region.
So today we're talking about equal pay. We just passed Equal Pay Day, as you will recall. And we are planning for next year's, which will be just a little bit earlier. And we're moving it back as the pay gap starting to decline a bit, but still not to where we'd like it to be, and certainly nowhere near equality. We're going to talk about what union bargaining and what activism on the part of union women has to do with that. We're going to hear the latest statistics from the Institute of Women's Policy Research, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Janus case, which is now before the Supreme Court of the United States, and no, that does not refer to the investment company. It refers to a gentleman who's brought a suit against AFSCME, which is one of our unions. But we're lucky to have with us today some very expert speakers. I'll hand it over to Ms. Carolyn York.
Well, thank you, Connie, and thank you all for putting together this great panel today. I was involved with this organization decades ago, I think, and honestly did not realize you were still going strong, and so it's wonderful to reconnect with all of you and to talk about what is definitely the issue nearest and dearest to my heart. When I decided to retire from NEA in January, I had one request, and that was, may I still please represent NEA on the...
First, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here today. I've been working at the Institute for Women's Policy Research for almost 6 years now, and coming here today, I kept thinking to myself, oh my God, we have so much data on the issue of equal pay and the wage gap. Where do I even start? And I really decided just to focus on some of our most recent findings, and the analyses we've done leading up to Equal Pay Day this year. And so I'm just going to kind of scratch the surface, I think, on the data that IWPR has and the analysis that we've done. As was said, we have our Status of Women in the States project.
This is Elise Bryant.
Thank you, Connie. As you know, Connie is a Girl Scout and she's always prepared. So whatever you need, you can go to Connie for it. And as we sing in the DC Labor Chorus, I am a union woman, just as strong as I can be. I do not like the bosses, and the bosses don't like me. Which side are you on? 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 Well, I know which side you all are on. And that's why we're here today, gathered as women, as feminists, as womanists, as people who see that right now, in this time, at this point in our history, in this country, we are pivotal to what's going to be the arc of justice of history. Arc of justice, moving to justice, right? The arc of history. Okay.
For many years on girls' issues, I didn't even really know much about Girls Inc. So we inspire girls to be strong, smart, and bold, and we do that through direct service and advocacy. We have 80 local affiliates around the U.S. and Canada, and they serve girls ages 5 to 18, primarily through after-school and summer programs. And the idea is to give girls the skills, the knowledge, and the opportunities that they need to overcome the barriers they face and grow up healthy, educated, and independent. So there's 3 key ingredients to what we do. One is the safe girls-only space. One is the strong adult mentoring relationships that they develop with the staff and trained volunteers. And the third is the research-based programming that we offer. And we offer everything from healthy sexuality to economic literacy, media literacy, leadership and community action.
Well, thank you, Sue, for inviting me back. It's always great to be among the lionesses of the feminist movement. And I thought I'd really just give a quick background on some of the backstory to this grassroots movement that began in 2011. And then really hear around the table what you all have been most inspired by with the 2019 International Day of the Girl. So just again, not to bore you with too many details, but I hope you'll sort of get re-inspired, which we always need a continual dose of with this guy in the White House. So Schoolgirls Unite is actually the international program of our nonprofit called the Youth Activism Project. And we happened to hear about girls in Canada who had gone to their commission on their commissioner who was in charge of the status of women. And they were lobbying her for an annual Girls' Rights Day. And Schoolgirls Unite, who primarily at the time were 7th grade through seniors, they said, oh, another Hallmark card day. No, thank you.
There's one thing that you take away from my presentation. I'd like it to be that election security is a political issue. It is, of course, a technical issue, but that has kept people from agitating on it for far too long, and it's why we're in the crisis that we're in right now.
I want to talk about a couple of different facets around election security. So I am the former commissioner of elections in Virginia, also former registrar in Fairfax County, Virginia, and so I worked at all different levels in election administration, actually helping to run elections, being responsible for that, and so I know there's a big job to do out there when we talk about securing the election process and making more secure. So I'll start out with funding. So when we talk about funding, we actually put out, and we'll make sure everybody has a link to this. We in August put out kind of an analysis of what the overall cost is over the next 5 years. We think the overall cost is over the next 5 years for the entire country to be kind of up to where they need to be on election security. This isn't like a permanent solution. This is just to get them to where they need to be, right, in terms of the things that Akini talked about, having equipment in place that provides a paper record, implementing risk-limiting audits after elections, securing their statewide databases, right, just these basic things that we need to do.
At the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, we have a robust voting rights program, as I'm sure many of y'all are familiar with. You're probably familiar with our Election Protection Coalition, which is the largest national nonprofit voter protection effort, and I will once again plug our hotline. For anyone that ever has voting issues, they can call 866-OUR-VOTE. That's OURVOTE. and we always have volunteers ready to help people in all 50 states with any voting problems they encounter.
Thank you, Sue. I appreciate the invitation. I'm very grateful to be here today with the Clearinghouse on Women's Issues. I confess I did not know much about the organization before I was invited to present to you. I hope that doesn't badly affect what I have to say. Let me go ahead and get the three major questions sort of framed up, if you will. In terms of participation, women of African descent vote as if their lives depend on it. They do it consistently. They do it pretty much in a block. It's rare that you get fewer than 95, 96% of African American women voting for the most progressive candidate in the races. I will say that in 2016, the enthusiasm level was not quite what it was in 2012.
Introduce you all to Melina Olmo. She is president of the DC chapter of the National Conference of Puerto Rican Women. Melina.
Hi, thank you, and I'm very honored to be here today. My name is Melina Olmo, and I am president of the DC chapter of the National Conference of Puerto Rican Women. The organization was established in 1972. I came into the organization about maybe three and a half years ago. I've been living in DC since 1996. I came to college, went and left, came back. I've never worked for the federal government. I've never been involved in politics. My life has been, someone needs help, I work in a refugee project, I work on environmental projects. However, about 3 years ago, I started to take a special interest in my country, Puerto Rico, because I figured, wait a minute, I do all these things, and I've never actually done anything specific for my people, because our voice is important and our voice matters. So basically, we're all just coming together, not only giving monetary donations to local nonprofits, but also trying to get and encourage not just women, but Puerto Ricans to come and vote. In Puerto Rico, the history has shown that everyone votes. In Puerto Rico, when they come to the U.S., something happens. There's a cultural shift. And the history says that we're not as actively participating in voting. I'm hoping that changes now with everything that's happening, but that's something that we're struggling with, that we're trying to change.
Thank you. I will introduce you to Amy Hinojosa, President and CEO of MANA, a national Latina organization, and she will share information on their Latinas Run initiative.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you so much for the invitation to come to CWI. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect with women from all sectors. One of the things that Janice mentioned was the intersectionality of all the issues facing the country. We know that every single issue goes directly through the paths of women. And so we have to look at being part of the electorate. It's a responsibility that we have to take on to make sure that we're a vocal part of the electorate. For me, for MANA and the work that we do, what we know demographically is that 1 in 5 women right now in the United States are Hispanic. By 2060, that number is going to be 1 in 3. Wow. We can't wait to...
As you mentioned, I'm the policy director of Amal Punk's Fund at the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum. And NAPAWF is the only national organization serving PI women and girls with a reproductive justice framework at the intersections of economic justice, reproductive health, and immigration reform. We're working hard to defend the progressive gains we have made as a nation in regards to AAPI women having more agency to make decisions that are best for our bodies, our families, and our communities. We're working hard to build power so that Asian American women and girls can impact policy change at the local, state, and federal levels that are based on our interests, that benefit us, and that help to realize our dreams. Reproductive justice
I love stopping bullies, bigots, and harassers. I've been doing it for a long time. I'm the author of a book called Back Off, How to Confront and Stop Sexual Harassment and Harassers. I've got this nice article, Stop a Bigot, in the current issue of this magazine. And I have some handouts for you at the end of the session. What we're going to talk about today is very practical. What do? You personally, me personally, when you walk into the grocery store and there is an immigrant neighbor or a person of color and some white jackass bigot is screaming obscenities at them? What do? And the normal human response, and this is typical not just of women, but of men, kids, everybody, cross-culturally, all ages, is fear. Because this person is already violating a social boundary by being verbally...
Welcome, everyone. I'm Megan Prado again, also the VP of Global Issues for Clearinghouse on Women's Issues. This is my first event I've organized since joining the board a few months ago, so thank you to the speakers that so kindly responded and are here today. So we have Selena and Jeanette from the League of Women Voters.
Could you speak up a little? It's very hard to hear that.
We have Allegra from Common Cause and Erin from the Campaign Legal Center. So here it is, 2 weeks, 14 days to the election. Are you excited? Are we energized? Sounds like everybody's doing their part to get out the vote. So we really just wanted to have an event in October to really think about what are the ways the law can influence our rights and the ability to have safe and fair elections. So for me, I was interested in doing this event because politics is in my blood. I love Election Day. Election Day is better than Christmas, and I love Christmas. I think I've been in politics since I was 6 or 7 years old was the first time I went canvassing with my family. My dad was the county chair up in New Jersey, so every election day I spent making calls, knocking on doors, and then hunkered down in the war room at night, scribbling the figures as they came in. So that said, I'm really excited to have all these folks here to expound on these issues, and I will turn it over to Jeanette.
Great. Well, thank you, Megan, and thank you, everyone, for being here with us today and inviting me to be here. I just quickly wanted to go through some statistics related to the 2016 election cycle as we're thinking about the 2018 cycle and what the excitement level looks like, et cetera. In 2016, there were 116 million women who were eligible to vote. There were 28 million African Americans who were eligible to vote. There were for the Latinx population increased by 4 million eligible voters in the 2016 cycle, and the APIA vote also increased significantly during that time frame.
Thanks, Jeanette. Yeah, so thanks for having me here. I've been at Common Cause for 4 years now, and Common Cause has been around for nearly 50 years, where we've got members and supporters across the country, upwards of 1 million supporters now, and we've got 35 state chapters. And our aim is to hold power accountable. And I think a lot of people in this room, a lot of organizations who are working in this field right now would say, never has there been a more important time, at least in the past century, than it is now to hold power accountable. So we do that. We work on voting in elections, campaign finance reform, working against gerrymandering issues. And when it comes to this election, it really behooves all of us who work in this space to be vigilant both before, during, and after.
My name is Amy Billingsley. I'm one of the consultants with the History Makers, which is a group out of Chicago. Thank you, Sue Klein, for inviting me, and I'm honored to be in the midst of so many distinguished ladies. I was looking at this. If you substitute African American for feminist, you've got our story pretty much, because I'm on the board of directors of the Veteran Feminists of America, and I'm the co-chair of the Oral History Project along with Kathy Rand, another longtime feminist from Chicago. VFA was founded 25 years ago. Our founder was Jackie Sebelius. She was the president of New York City chapter of NOW in the early days and a feminist leader. And she pulled us together.
And I would like us to begin to develop a list of where you can go for information, because it's fine to have it, but if you don't retrieve it, it's not worth much. Introduce Elsa Little, who has 45 years of working for nonprofit sectors in Washington, D.C.
My name is Elle Little, and I've had the opportunity to work closely with Tina every month and help to point her in the right direction. She's one of the most interesting individuals that you would ever want to help point. What I'd like to talk to you today is about how we determine our own legacy. There's a powerhouse of women in this room.
About and get started. Sherry?
Okay, thanks. How to use social media to advance support for feminist issues. That's what we're going to talk about today.
First, we have Carrie Stein, who is a seasoned media executive specializing in issues affecting women, families, and diverse communities. Ms. Stein is executive producer of the nationally and internationally acclaimed PBS Women's News Analysis and Documentary program, To the Contrary, with Bonnie Urbay.
The platform called OVI, which is a PBS platform, and we do interactive screenings of some of our programs, and we'll promote them, and OVI even has a thing where you hit Twitter and Facebook and say, come to our OVI right now, and like while you're doing it, you can still send out a message with the link to come to our OVI. And we would have experts and other people just watching the show, talking about it, and then keep the experts on after so that people can ask questions of them. One other thing that we do now is a website. It's called Women's Watchdog. And we're chronicling all of what's happening with women's rights under the Trump administration. So, like I said, we also have a LinkedIn. We don't do that much with that. Instagram, I will tell you that I have a 26-year-old daughter, and her and all her friends say, no, you could be on Instagram. Just do more pictures. Do more pictures on that. So we try, and we actually, if you go back and you look at last week's show, you would find it amazing how women could sit down at a table and start agreeing on things and actually start thinking about where policies can go to create, like we were talking about childcare and parental leave, and there was a discussion, not a fight.
You were saying that.
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate what I said, when you make a post, you want to make it actionable. And what that means is you want to give your followers or the people who are interested in your information somewhere to go or something to do. So this could be a specific petition, this could be something they can tell their friends or family, and that's how that information is going to get passed along.
Okay, thank you. I'm Ann Martin, and it's my pleasure today to talk about Financial Literacy Month. April is Financial Literacy Month. It has been designated that since 2003 by the United States. A lack of financial preparedness and financial information has huge societal costs, and in the coming years that will really tell on Americans and especially women. That's why it's a complex problem. It's been said that over 50% of Americans do not have $1,000 in savings, and it's also been found that they cannot cover a $400 emergency.
We'll do that. I see there aren't as many young women in the room, but what I'm going to ask you to do as I present is write this down and tell your daughters, your granddaughters, the young women that you know, pass this on. They're not getting it in high school or in college. Even the economics majors are not getting it because that's not what you do. You know the big new science, behavioral economics, rich they...
So now we're going to talk about young women and money. Welcome.
I wanted to first off start saying that AEW, we are an organization that is committed to advancing women through advocacy, education, and research. And our three main focus areas are education and training. So fun fact, we are the largest funder of women's graduate and professional education in this country, next to Department of Education. Almost $4 million given a year to women in their education, but also leadership and economic security. And today I'll be focusing on economic security. We do this through the focus we look in economic security is the gender pay gap is our big issue, but we're also very concerned about retirement issues and how that affects women, really half women in Boston in salary negotiation. But we're also with the state treasurers in Massachusetts. We pledged with the Women's Foundation of Kansas, Missouri to train 1 million women across both those states. We're working with the Friends Commission of Women in San Francisco. We have initiatives in Long Beach, California, and Tempe, Arizona. We are in constant conversation with different
associations and organizations, and so we're just trying to get the word out. Work Smart Online is free. Let me say that again, it's free. We're trying to teach you salary negotiation for free. Our in-person workshops, free. You can go to our in-person workshops for free. We think it's the most important thing is that we close the gender pay gap, because we know that by closing the gender pay gap, we are transforming lives. We are transforming women's lives. We're transforming their lives for their families. We're going to transform the economy. Can you imagine all that extra money going back in to the tax, right? Think of all the money in terms of.
Well, I'll just give some like brief reflections, and then I am actually interested too in the different questions you have for what we find challenging, what we find natural. I would have to say that really my leadership started with a similar story to lots of other women, in that it started with strong women in my family. And that even if you grow up in a very Western society that tends to take on very patriarchal characteristics, when there is a strong woman in your family, it ends up sort of seeping into you as a young woman. And while the women may have feigned the traditional roles for the men in our family, it was clear at the end of the day who made the decisions, whether it was my grandfather or my grandmother on either side of the family. And I look at that, and I think it was that confidence and that second nature of having a place at the table, whether that was physically at Thanksgiving, literally at family gatherings, or whether it became figuratively in sort of the order of the day and the politics that got discussed, around that table, or the local issues that got brought up, that made me realize that my expectation of a place at the leadership table was really born when I was little.
Well, on behalf of our three officers, Lily Eskelson Garcia, Rebecca Pringle, and Princess Moss, who's our Secretary-Treasurer, I'm here to represent them, and I only have one copy, but for those of you who don't know what they look like, I have a copy of the NEA Today from 2014, the year that they were elected as the three officers of the NEA. One of the differences is that our team, and as Catherine will comment, what is unique about our team is that they're all women of color. So Lily being Latina, and Princess and Rebecca being Black women of a union that is predominantly female, but predominantly white female. Mm-hmm. So the challenges, the awesomeness of what this team represents is about pushing our members and challenging our members to think a little differently, not only about leadership, but about where we stand as educators in this country.
Also talk very briefly. This is a very short and succinct. I don't have quite enough copies, so if you guys could share so that people can see. But I can also tell you what it's in, and you can look at it yourself. It's also, some of them are in the book. So what we did is look at the social science literature, and on the topic of women and leadership, what we did in this project, as we do in many of the projects we do at AEW, is look at the peer-reviewed research. We looked at about 400 or 500 peer-reviewed articles, and we also looked at reports from the government. We looked at nonprofit sources. We looked at a lot of different things. What we found is that there is an exhaustive amount of literature in leadership, and it was exhausting to go through it. And we in the end don't have a full, what I would call a full literature review, simply because the more you read about this topic, there's more there is. Now, how many of you have read a book about leadership? Okay. How many of you have read a book about women and leadership? An article about women and leadership? Yes. Okay. So you've all heard about this. I'm going to start with the style question, and then I'm going to get right into my presentation, because that was brought up by Donna Nelson in the beginning, and it's been echoed throughout, which is, are women different kinds of leaders than men are?
Title IX is 47 years old, and many of us, or some of us, met Bunny even before Title IX started, and that was my case. I was very fortunate. I met Bunny in 1969.
And I met Bunny, I think, in the 1970s, and I think I met her probably over Joanne Evans Gardner's house, who was sort of the guru of the feminist movement in Pittsburgh, and very active nationally, and also one of the founders of the political caucuses within the various professions. She thought the world of Bunny, and she was right.
I'm Francilia Gleaves. To Bunny, Margaret Dunkel connected me and Bunny and another staffer, Kay Meckus, for a mini reunion. And I was thrilled to be reunited. And I remember how saying to her in retrospect, it's a righteous war.
What a joy that we're together. I'm Edie Fraser, and I knew Bunny very early, it seems, because there were three distinct things she got me to do. She got us all to do things, and we got others to do things.
Probably the latest one to come and know Bunny, because it was only in the 90s that my boss, Barbara Fett Blake, said, you need to meet this woman, Bunny Sandler. She is just phenomenal, and she's done so much for Title IX, and I thought, Title IX, what is Title IX? I'll find out what Title IX is.
Yeah, my name is Jan Erickson. I'm Government Relations Director for the National Organization for Women. That manner of Bunny, of always smiling. So in the spirit of Bunny Sandler, I'm sure that we will all be working on getting this done, and Bunny will be smiling all along the way. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Holly Joseph. We have progress when we have someone like Bunny who says, this doesn't have to be the way things are.
Hi, I'm Susan Hurst. I'm very happy and just love hearing everything about Bunny. And I was one of those that woke up late too, because when I was in high school, we did not have Title IX.
My experience with Bunny, because I didn't really know her. I knew of her, and we saw meetings and stuff. I was not friends the way you all have been, but she was very shy. But she always said thank you for taping.
Bunny's left a legacy, so let's take the energy that Bunny certainly exuded and start saying from here on in to honor Bunny.
I'm Karen McTighe-Musels. The absolutely intimidating fortune to inherit the office of the Program on the Status and Education of Women after Bunny. She had been gone for a year, but I then took up the mantle that, as so many have said, she put down these building blocks.
Hello, my name is Janice Koch. I met Bunny in the 90s. Sort of late to meet her, right?
Hi, I'm Jeanette Lim, Vice President for Legal Affairs in this group, CWI. I started working in May of 1972, a budding feminist, not really understanding what the rest of my life would be, which has been great under the tutelage of people like Bunny Sandler.
I'm Marcia Greenberger, and I will tell you about a little bit about myself and my connection to Bunny Sandler. Public interest law firms, the Center for...
I want to thank CWI for having this occasion event in memory of Bunny. She has enriched lives by the millions, and everyone here in this room has been touched by her.
Okay, I'm Amanda Barrard. So I was with her pretty much nonstop the last week of her life. I was with her when she died.
Thank you. Thank you for being there for her.
Well, I am proud of them because I know what they have done, and they do a lot of tremendously good work and hard work.
But you have been our leader through all of the wonderful Title IX programs that you have really pushed forward in the laws and so on.
Yeah, it takes a lot of people to do it, and you pass a law and it's great, but there've got to be people who then push to get that law enforced, and that's what those women are doing and have been doing for years. And without them, Title IX is not as good as it would be.
Thank you so much, and please keep up the great work.
Oh, well, that's what I would say to them, because they're doing the hard work, which is in the field. They need to continue, and I know that they will.
Well, thank you so much.